evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, good evening, Ms. First Selectwoman.
All right, so I'm going to first ask that everyone mute themselves so we don't get any background noise or anything like that during the meeting. And then when we get to the parts for the questions and then public comment, people can then unmute themselves. The first hour of our presentation, we're going to, like I said, we're going to do presentations, and then the second hour, we're going to allow for elected officials to ask questions. And I ask everyone for the first hour, elected officials only of the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and the RTM to go to the chat section. We are using Zoom for the first time because it allows more members of the public to actually be engaged on this, where our WebEx, which we've used for the term of COVID, has a capacity level. So you'll go into the chat section, the elected officials for the first hour, and then we will go through the list and let each member ask a question. And then we're going to go to the public, and we'll ask that our residents do the very same thing and go into the chat section during that part. And I'll announce when that time comes up. This meeting is going to be recorded and will be posted on the town's homepage at www.fairfieldct.org. It will be streaming live tonight for those residents who want to just watch it. I would like, Prue is our secretary this evening. First, I just want to thank all our elected officials for making the time who could be here to listen to the presentations and to take the time to be here this evening, and also for our members of the public. I'm going to ask Prue, who's our clerk this evening, to do a roll call of elected officials. And so, Prue, if you would start with the Board of Selectmen, then go to Board of Finance, and then RTM.
Okay, everyone can hear me?
Yes.
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 Thank you. Okay, for Selectmen.
I can't hear you now.
How about now?
Better.
Yes, I can hear you, Prue.
Selectman Tom Flynn,
Yes.
Selectwoman Nancy Lefkowitz. Okay, Board of Finance, Jim Brown. Charlton.
Here.
David Fogel. Marvin. John Matola. Chris DeWitt.
Here.
I'm here, Proof.
Okay, oh, thank you. Mary LeClaire.
Here.
Jack Pistani.
Here.
Jim Walsh. Okay, for the RTM, I have District 1, Amy Ruggiero, Ed Bateson, Veronica Monahan, Amy O'Shea. District 2, Bill Gerber.
Yeah, here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Karen McCormick.
Present.
Thank you. Cynthia Pam. Jeff Steele. District 3, Alex Durrell.
Here. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Matt Jacobs.
Here.
Scott Nickel. Sharon Pastilli. District 4, Laura Carson. Alice Kelly.
Here.
Meredith Odenak.
Here.
Marcy Spoliar.
Here.
District 5, Josh Garstoff.
Here.
Will Diaz. Joe Siebert. Jay Wolk. District 6, Matthew Ambrose. Is that Matthew? Okay. Tamisha Powell Dunmore. Hannah Gale. Lisa Havey. 7, Lauren Beauvais, Mark Dermott, Jill Vergara,
Here.
Karen Wackerman,
Here.
District 8, Hank,
Hank Ferentz is here.
okay, Pamela Iacono, Christine Messina,
Here.
Peter Tallman. District 9, Rick Grauer, Drew Georgiadis, Christy Kelly.
Rick Crowley, did you get me?
Oh, Rick, okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I didn't realize it.
That's okay.
Chrissy Kelly's here.
All right, thank you. And
I'm here.
me? Bill Perugini?
Yes, Bill Perugini is here. Good evening.
Thank you. All right, District 10, Elizabeth Altabelli. Peter Britton,
Here. Did you hear me? Here.
Kimberly Grant,
Here.
and Frank Patisse. Okay, that's all that I have.
Hi, Sharon Pastilli, District 3. It was clocking, so I was just hoping you got me. Thank you.
Thank you. I will do that. Thank you.
Prue, Amy Ruggiero is also typed in the chat that she is present.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I see John Matola. I see you.
And Nancy Lefkowitz joined. Sorry if I'm cutting in too soon.
That's okay.
Here, guys. Nice seeing everyone.
Sheila Marmion is on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I think I'm finished calling the roll.
Thank you, Prue.
Thank you.
David Fogel's on too. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, David. And just for any members who sign on late, just put in the chat that you're there and Prue can check that off. So welcome everyone again, and I just want to remind everyone, if you could just put your computer on mute, or if you're calling your phone on mute during the meeting so we don't have any background noise for the first hour of the presentation. So I want to again thank you for making the time to be here. Obviously, there's a lot of excitement about our town receiving this level of funding from the federal government. Is obviously a gift to our town. And so when we were alerted to that, we obviously, sat down and had many discussions. My administration and I worked long time looking through our waterfall project list, obviously things that have been reviewed by our town bodies. We also I looked to other towns to see what they may be doing, look at the criteria that the federal government established regarding the funding. And so some of the things that are on the priority list are not just items that are on the waterfall chart, but they're also items that the federal government and other towns are looking to implement in their communities as well. And you'll see that as we go through the presentation. One notable item would be the COVID recovery fund. And so there was a lot of discussions, and again, reviewing the project, we took some things into consideration, that they are shovel ready, that they could be completed within the timeline established under the federal guidelines, and that they could touch pretty much a wide percentage of our community in certain different ways. So you will be able to see that as we move through, that we want to make sure that everyone in our community, for the most part, a majority of our residents, would get some benefit from this $25 or $24.8 million. Additionally, we wanted to make sure we were meeting the criteria and that we were getting these projects done. I know some residents did, write in about, projects or ideas that they're interested in that haven't really been fully vetted or haven't had, studies and aren't what I would, say again is shovel ready. So we're gonna go through, some of the items I know we sent back up, but a lot of people are asking. Yeah, okay, so I'm sorry. I want to first, before we share a screen with the PowerPoint, I want to thank my Chief of Staff, Jackie Bertalone, who put a lot of extra work into putting together this PowerPoint for our elected officials and our community, and Jared Smith, who is very helpful, who's worked looking at these guidelines and everything. A lot of emails coming in from the federal government and deciphering all that information. He's going to share the PowerPoint now, and then I'll walk us through it. So how much will Fairfield, I'm sorry. So when can the funding be used? The start date was March 3rd, 2021, and the eligible date for costs must be incurred by December 31st, 2024, and the funding must be spent by December 31st, 2026. So that's one of the criteria and the reasons why we're looking at projects that can be implemented within that time frame. How much will Fairfield receive? Well, the total amount is, like I said, $24.8 million. The Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund directly from the U.S. Treasury. $12.8 million total. So far, we've received $6.4 million, and $6.4 million will be expected to us in May of 2022. The County Fiscal Recovery Fund from the state as a pass-through, which is a $12 million in total, that $6 million is expected in June of 2021, and six more additional million is expected in June of 2022. Eligible uses for the funds. Revenue loss, the interim final rule gives recipients a broad latitude. So there's a lot of criteria, like I said, that our Chief Fiscal Officer, Jared Smith, has been reviewing and looking through. Services that are not limited to maintenance of infrastructure, pay-as-you-go spending, building infrastructure, roads, modernization, cybersecurity, and so forth. You can see those. And if you, as we go through the presentation of the various items, you'll see we're trying to hit all of those boxes that are included in the formula. So based on that, based on the formula that the Treasury put forward, Fairfield's revenue loss was about $13.6 million, which will apply to the first year of the grant. There will be a new calculation at the end of 2021. So like I said, we tried to focus on, areas that we thought were in line with these guidelines: mental health and social services, economic development, public safety, the environment, quality of life issues, recreation, arts, culture, and town modernization and infrastructure. So our first item is under the social services and mental health umbrella. And as we talked about during COVID, we had a COVID relief fund that was assisting residents in our community in numerous ways. And a lot of this we included in the newsletters throughout, obviously, the first year of the pandemic, and it was widely used by our community. But there are still issues in our community that are unresolved, and so we decided we wanted to put in $200,000 for a recovery fund to assist our community in areas, say one time to Fairfield residents, provide some help to people. And so we put them in three different buckets, and I'm going to turn this over to next. We're going into we're going to the next slide. Yeah, but she's social services. Okay, So Julie DeMarco, is going to speak a little bit about this, and then she's gonna also speak about the 3 nonprofits that we chose, to receive funding from this, from the American Recovery Fund. 3 nonprofits that we believe, capture a large, majority of our community in 3 different nonprofits that do a lot of good work for our residents. So I'm gonna hand it over to you, Julie.
Okay, thanks very much. So as you know, Fairfield Social Services, we provide emergency financial assistance, crisis intervention, case management, and referrals to resources and supports for the residents of Fairfield. What we're seeing now is that as the COVID relief is kind of easing and unemployment is going to be ending, people who are not receiving stimulus any longer are starting to get stressed, and basic needs are expensive. So we're seeing an increased demand for services by our social workers, and that's on an emergency basis. So for food, shelter, health costs, and Fairfield residents are struggling to afford them. So this fund over the next few years will allow for us to work with families. First of all, we'll come in and assess their eligibility for the fund, but while we're doing that, we can also see what other services they may not know about that they are eligible for. So the fund will help them kind of get a leg up on the recovery, and also to find out what else is available to help them. So this is very, very exciting. It's a great thing for the town to be able to do. As Brenda mentioned, the fund that was going through COVID went quickly and was very important. Families were happy to be able to get the assistance, but also, you know, we have a very generous community in terms of giving, but also many families who are the givers were struggling. So it was nice to be able to give back to them and make sure they were okay. So I'll move on to the nonprofits.
Yes, thanks, Julie.
We rely on and collaborate with these nonprofits that you see in this package. They provide direct clinical and supportive services to Fairfield residents, and those are above and beyond what we can provide as a town department because we are really in crisis intervention mode. Each is able to work with children, families, adults, seniors, and it's important to have them ready to go because we don't really understand the long-term effects of the pandemic on physical or mental health. So starting with LifeBridge Community Services, you know that White House behind Town Hall, that's where Fairfield Counseling is. They offer a continuum of comprehensive high quality mental health and substance abuse services to families in Fairfield. What's wonderful about LifeBridge is that they are located right in town. They're easy to get to. Their social workers and family therapists are very well qualified, smart, and nimble, able to get in touch with people quickly and find a way to help them, whether it's at home or in the building. It's also a licensed substance abuse facility. Child and Family Guidance is our next one. They provide children and families with culturally informed mental health care and complementary supports. We rely greatly on Child and Family Guidance in terms of our behavioral health response team for planning for emergencies. They are able to target families, whether because of anxiety or trauma or depression, stress, and they can work, again, do at-home visits or telehealth or in the office, and can do medication management. Last is Operation Hope, and I know you're all familiar with Operation Hope and all the wonderful things that they do for the town of Fairfield and our residents, between homeless outreach, intake, crisis resolution, food pantry, the community kitchen, and all the work that they did during the pandemic. I think you can agree that supporting them is an enormous benefit for the town.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you, Julie. And I just want to mention, all three of the nonprofits have a representative on the line for when we get to the portion for Q&A. So our next item is under economic development, which is a plan of the conservation development POCD zoning regulation review. So Mark is going, and Jim are on the line, but Mark is going to explain how we were working on this early in before the pandemic, and Jim Went and Emmeline were hosting forums where I actually attended one of them, but there was a large percentage of our members of our public and members of our elected members of our planning and zoning and various groups, affordable housing and such, that came to give input because our POCD is overdue for an update, and it would take a considerable amount of time to be able to do this in-house and would be able to get done much more quickly if we were able to put this funding toward it. So I'm going to hand it, I believe, over to Mark Barnhart. Mark?
Thank you, Brenda. Hopefully people can hear me. Appearing on behalf of the Economic Development and Planning and Zoning team, Jim Went, I believe, is also on tonight's call. The POCD, or Plan of Conservation Development, is the town's master plan and helps guide the physical development of the community. It's required to be updated every 10 years. We last did a partial update in 2016, which was largely demographically based and to incorporate some elements from the regional plan. We haven't done a comprehensive review of our land use policies since 2000, roughly 20 years, and a rewrite of our zoning regulations in 3 decades. So it's long overdue. And recognizing that, the commission and staff embarked on a plan to update our POCD a few years back. Obviously, that work was in addition to the regular work that the planning and zoning staff do on a day-to-day basis, and it was impacted obviously by the pandemic. This is critical because, again, this plan guides the development, how best to develop our community, where that development should occur, what type of development we want to encourage, if any. And these are all critical questions as we talk to businesses and try to attract investment into our community. It's good to have that community engagement and involvement and an update done regularly. So again, the staff is quite capable of working on this, but it will take some time to complete given their regular duties. And it's thought that with some additional resources, we can move that process along much quicker and complete that in a more timely fashion, which would be helpful.
Thank you, Mark. And obviously, this is something I thought our community would really want, given the tremendous amount of interest across our town on development and our TP&Z commission, right? So I think this would be something our community would welcome, and to have this document with the input of everyone in our community, our residents and businesses. So that's why this is on the list. The next item is a downtown resiliency project. So I had asked Mark when we were, working on this and having a lot of meetings, and I said, how can we help our business community? What could we do? And so we talked about how we had funds that were assisting our business community during the height and in the middle of COVID. But he said he really wasn't getting that sort of request from the business community, and he came forward with this project that he thought would be very helpful for a large percentage of businesses in the downtown area. So I'm going to hand this over to Mark.
And to that point, First Selectwoman and members of the boards, we have had a small business recovery fund. We've committed to date, we've assisted over 80 businesses in town, committed over $300,000 in small business grants to those businesses to help them with the effects of the recent pandemic. We haven't seen a lot of new applications as of late. We still have funding available. So if there are businesses, small businesses in particular, that need help in dealing with the effects of it, please contact my office as soon as possible. We'll be happy to work with you and again, consider those types of requests. A traditional role of government in terms of facilitating economic development is with respect to providing the infrastructure to support business growth. And a key issue, especially in the wake of Superstorm Sandy and Irene, was some of the flooding that we saw, not just in the downtown, but elsewhere. And the increase in severity of these incidents in light of climate change, the effects of that, the number and severity of those incidents over time. And we've certainly witnessed that downtown, which is prone to tidally influenced flooding and rain events that are increasing in severity and number. In the wake of those storms, we did receive a grant, which we used to engage Malone and McBroom and study how we can make the downtown area more resilient to these types of storm events, to improve stormwater retention, to reduce runoff that would go into the storm drain system. And we looked specifically at whether or not we could utilize green infrastructure approaches to reduce that and make the downtown less flood prone. And they provided a report, which has been included in our capital plan for some years now since the plan was developed. We've applied for funding, haven't been able to secure funding to date to implement the action steps in the plan. This was the recommendations of that plan were reviewed with the downtown business community, was well received, but again, we haven't had the funding to implement those actions outside of some additional capacity, stormwater capacity, detention capacity we installed in Sherman Green fairly recently. So this would allow us to move forward with some of those additional recommendations that were in the plan, and we hope to receive your support for that.
Thank you, Mark. That was very helpful. So the next item is public safety, and just I want to just make a comment, and then I'm going to have the chief come up. In light of the legislative changes and the increased needs of our police department, we reviewed a lot of different items, and we felt this one was very, very important for our public safety and our law enforcement. So I'm going to hand this over to Chief Calamars, and he's going to do a presentation.
Thank you, Madam Selectwoman. Good evening, representatives. We're proposing a $3.7 million body camera, dashboard cam, and taser proposal from Axon Technologies. It is the most up-to-date and probably the biggest organization involved in law enforcement with regard to tasers and body cameras, and the solution that they provide includes technology, all the training, all the hardware, all the equipment and software that will be needed over a 10-year period to improve the accountability and credibility of our police department. This obviously would better connect the people of our community to calls for service and assist in the police department handling the calls in the most effective and efficient manner. So one of the goals here, we were looking to implement this over a period of time, and this would essentially be a one-time bundle, which we would be able to purchase this equipment all at once and be fully outfitted for the next 10 years.
I also want to just reiterate on top of that what the chief shared. Again, that's for all this equipment, all the service, any replacement, anything that needs to be done, monitoring all the footage, all of it encompassed in that one cost for a full 10 years, which means we wouldn't have to pay for that or pay for anything associated with any of the body cams, the dash cams, or the tasers for a full 10 years. The next item, public safety, is Perry's Green Bulkhead for $1 million. And this is an item that, I talked to a lot of our department heads, and obviously Bill Hurley's involved with so many things, as you all know. And he brought this up saying this has been on our list, our waterfall list, for some time. And that it's become, an actually, a safety issue for our community. And so I'm gonna have Bill Hurley come up and talk a little bit about this.
Thank you, Brenda. The Perry's Green bulkhead, we're seeking $1 million. It's been listed on the capital improvement plan, fiscal year 22 and 23 for design and construction. Perry's Green bulkhead is located at Perry's Green Park, which is next to the Pequot Yacht Club at Southport Harbor along Harbor Road. The bulkhead system is estimated at least 55 years old and probably much older than that. Replacement to the bulkhead has been requested in the capital improvement plan for decades. Unfortunately, as Brenda alluded to, the condition of the timber frame and steel bulkhead has deteriorated beyond repair, and this obviously creates a potentially dangerous situation. The concrete wall has cracks, the timber has blunt ends, and the steel is corroded with sharp edges that stick up or are very close to the existing grade. On the northwest side of Harbor Road, there's also a stone culvert, an associated tie gate structure located at the terminus of Horse Tavern Brook that needs significant repair or replacement. So the purpose of the project is to replace the existing bulkhead with a new bulkhead, approximately 450 feet, and we will secure the surrounding park area for erosion and prevent the sinkholes and remove a potentially dangerous structure. As alluded to before, the tie gates operate under a DEP approved permit approval that controls tidal flow of Horse Tavern Brook and stormwater discharge points, blow points at Center Street and Pequot Avenue. Sure. The next slide. Yep. The next slide is the townwide guide rail. The town of Fairfield infrastructure is aging, and in many cases, the roads and bridges do not comply with current codes or roadway standards. Over the past few years, state and town consultants have issued reports or complaints regarding the current conditions, and the town must provide some short-term and long-term repair solutions. This townwide guide rail improvements for $200,000 has already been approved and is listed on the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2022. The engineering has identified the guide rails in need of replacement, and the town has already issued a purchase order to the contractor, and he has begun work on the first half of the project.
Thank you, Bill. So our next item is again under public safety, and this is for firehouse renovations for the Fairfield Fire Department, and they're in their second year of a multi-year fire station rehabilitation project. I'm going to hand this over to Chief McCarthy, who's on the line, I believe.
Thank you, First Selectwoman Kupchak. Dennis McCarthy, good to join you tonight. As you're aware from previous presentations, the fire department has identified a number of projects that are necessary to maintain a good working order of our 5 firehouses. And we have embarked on that project. As the First Selectwoman indicated, we're in year 2 of a multi-year plan to renovate interior spaces. To date, we are in design for the final design going to construction documents for the bathroom rehabilitation, and we're going out to bid for overhead doors and our air management, air filtration system for the apparatus floor. The projects that are in the long-term waterfall projections include renovations of the administrative offices on the second floor of the Reef Road Firehouse. This is a facility that was built in 1954, continues to serve the department well, but is in serious need of renovations to maintain its functionality. It is lacking ADA compliance. There is no elevator access to the second floor administrative offices. So as you can see in the slide, there is a portion of this project that we would use for the design of that space or that addition. in conjunction with the ADA study that the town intends to or is projecting to fund as part of the ARPA funding. Additionally, renovation first floor living spaces at the Reef Road Firehouse and construction of a storage addition. We feel that if we are adding on to the building to add a elevator, we would combine that work with a storage addition to make the best use of that process and that investment. And lastly, in this project, there are two additional items. Right now, apparatus maintenance is maintained, or they're located at the Jennings Road Firehouse. We're still working on solutions for that to make that either a better facility as it is in that building or relocate it to another location. That construction would be continuing on subsequent funding, as would the elevator. So we're working on that. And lastly, renovation as part of this project, the living spaces, watchroom, offices, quarters, and shop offices at the Jennings Road Firehouse. And that certainly is a tall order to accomplish all of that with this funding. But we feel that given previous experience and estimates that we've received, we should be able to accomplish much, if not all of it.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And the next item is environment. So obviously, while we were having all these meetings going through the many items, and we do have a lot of needs in town, far outweighing the 25 million, that's for sure. But it made sense, obviously, to me that we include $1 million toward our fill pile remediation issues. As we're all very aware, we've already spent millions of dollars, and we are aware that we are going to be spending a lot more than that before we are finally at the end of this cleanup effort. So I wanted to put in $1 million toward that effort and to address the numerous issues that we are working on regarding the fill pile. Next item is under environment as well. So this is something I had wanted to actually include in my budget the first year that we had put together a budget. Upon coming to town hall, you know, obviously whenever you visit here, you can't help but notice the fleet of Crown Victorians in the parking lot. And I had asked my CAO, Tom Bremer, to do an in-depth review of those cars and proposal, because for one reason, they're extraordinarily old. They range from 10 to 25 years, and they all have very significant mileage on them. And frankly, they're a far cry from being an environmentally helpful vehicle. So we put in, and I just want to note that Sustainable Fairfield did write a formal letter to my administration with a list of items that they support. And their number one item was replacing the town fleet with electric cars. So we put in replacing 29 old Crown Victorians and proposing to sell and dispose of the old vehicles, and then a combination of electric and hybrid. And then also this cost of $940,000 will include the vehicles and also electric service at Independence Hall and installing the charging stations of the vehicles. We would need an electrical upgrade at this site to be able to charge those vehicles. Our next item is the Burr Historical Gardens. We had just put this on. Last year, my chief of staff and I were invited to have lunch out on our gardens right behind Independence Hall by the chairman, Robert Swardick, to talk about the Burr Gardens and their advisory committee. So as you know, it's a large piece of property, and it's not just the gardens behind Independence Hall, but it constitutes many areas. And frankly, it hasn't been given really any influx of funding or anything, and it could look so much more beautiful. I would encourage anyone in our community to take the time meet with or review the designs that they have put together to update, and really it would be such an amazing destination for our community and add to the beauty of this, our entire historical site where our two buildings sit. So we've included $25,000 towards the gardens. Next item is also under the environment. Now this is probably not unfamiliar to anyone who elected office, the Rooster River detention area. Obviously, this has been a long standing issue in our town, and it's combined with Bridgeport and Trumbull, but we have seen significant flooding in 2006, 7, and 18, and businesses and homes were really devastated during those floodings. So this we felt like was a no-brainer to put this in here to get some of this work done. I'm going to have Bill Hurley come up and talk a little bit about why we put this on the list.
Thanks, Brenda. This request is $3.25 million. It's listed on the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 23. Fairfield DPW hired a consultant to perform the hydrologic study of the Rooster River watershed with designs for 6 strategic locations. The current study concentrates on potential detention areas along the Rooster River watershed. They're somewhere between 30 and 50% design completion for those projects. And the request that's here before would be for the construction of these detention areas, easement or property acquisition and inspection for the project. The purpose of the project is to reduce flooding potential within the Rooster River watershed, and in most cases, holding back stormwater runoff through detention reduces the flow rate and reduces the amount of flooding for the areas downstream. That should benefit most property owners and homeowners. These construction improvements will also help reduce the frequency of flooding, reduce property damage, improve access, and improve water quality. And the proposal, as mentioned before, includes the construction, the property acquisition, wetland mitigation, some landscaping, and inspection for the project. Just to let everybody know, we've been in discussions with the city of Bridgeport, and they would be an active participant by putting funds towards detention areas for the Rooster River on their side of the river, and for the proposed detention areas at the Fairchild Wheeler Golf Course. All right, Brenda.
Thanks, Bill. Our next item is quality of life, recreation, arts and culture. So playground renovation. We went through a lot of meetings with Anthony, and I thought this was a good use of this amount of funding to touch a lot of children in a lot of different neighborhoods. So they would get, something, a benefit from this money that the federal government sent. And all of these playgrounds have been on the waterfall and are quite old. So I'm going to hand it over to Anthony to give you a little bit more.
Thank you, Brenda. Good evening, everybody. And as you can see, to Brenda's point, all the items on here that you see for playgrounds, these have been on a waterfall chart, so we're just moving these up. These are shovel ready, and they are in different areas of town. So we do plan on, if this money gets approved, renovating the Tunxus Hill Playground, Melville Park Playground, Lincoln Park, Dover Park, and Highwood Park. In our 29 or so playgrounds that we have, these are really the 5 that are in the worst shape and need the attention first. So these are our recommendations, and we hope you support these.
Thank you, Anthony. The next item, and this Anthony is going to present on this as well, is the Jenny Beach concession area for $100,000. Anthony?
Thank you again. Jennings Beach concession, for those of you who know, Jennings Beach is our largest beach and probably our most popular beach because it does cater to residents and non-residents. The building is extremely old. I believe it was built in the 50s. It's more of a cement block type construction. What we'd be looking to do here is really leave the building in place, just kind of give it a facelift with a facade on all sides of it, improve some of the kitchen facilities, improve the lifeguard office that is currently on site, and then other exterior things would be to improve the seating for guests and include sunshades to give people a place to sit out of the sun.
Thank you, Anthony. And the next item is golf course maintenance, $230,000. I'd asked Anthony and Peter Grace to put together a list of items, and of that list, we chose these 3 items that we feel would take some pressure off future operating budget and also really improve the quality of life at the golf course. And Anthony, I'm going to hand that over to you, if you can explain these.
Sure. Thank you very much. So in sitting with Peter Grace and talking about different machines that are on the older side and need to be replaced, the 3 machines that are listed here, the triplex greenway mower, the 5-plex fairway mower, and the range cart with cage are the 3 machines that are in need of immediate replacement. So these would have been coming either through the capital list or our operating budget within the next year. So we hope you could support these projects as well.
Thank you, Anthony. And I just want to personally say congratulations to Anthony on his recent wedding, and he just got back from his honeymoon. So welcome back, Anthony. Congratulations.
Thank you. Less than an hour. It's perfect.
Just made it.
Just made it.
So our next item is the Bigelow Senior Center for $850,000. Obviously, our senior center has needed improvements for a very long time. Anyone who lives in this town or has been in elected office or is a senior and that visits the center knows that it needs significant investment. And so we did approve recently $100,000 for design work there. And we felt that this was an important item to include. Obviously, our seniors use this center and they have faced so many challenges during the pandemic, and to be able to do these updates is going to have a real impact on our senior citizen community. I'm going to hand it over to Julie. Oh, I think it's just me. Sorry, Julie.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, that was me. Okay. And you could just see some of the items that we would be addressing here. And these are items that are familiar to elected officials because when we approved the design work, these are the items we talked about wanting to come before the town bodies for funding to complete those things at the senior center. We also, our next item, we include $100,000 for a deck patio at the senior center. Right now, they don't have a good space, and we just had a welcome back lunch for the soft reopening of the senior center, and I went down to be there for the picnic, and they had it in the front. And while the seniors were so excited to be back there and enjoying a luncheon, it's a difficult space for seniors with some disabilities and mobility issues. And so to have a deck that they'd be able to have outdoor activities on, especially during the spring and summer and fall, I think would be such a benefit to our seniors in Fairfield. So this is why we included it. Our next item is an ADA consultant. So we understand there are a lot of areas in our town that could be improved regarding accessibility, and we feel the paid consultant would really be the best way to get a solid a list and information about how we can be more ADA compliant. And so we included $75,000 for an ADA consultant to the town. Our next item is a performance stage, funding toward a performance stage and public restrooms at the History Center. So If you come to town hall on the weekend, some people would be surprised how bustling, the back of the History Center is on the weekends. I see them on Friday nights when I'm leaving, and there's a lot of cultural activity that happens there. And they put up a temporary stage for the summer to have events there, and they use porta potties, which aren't really an ideal thing to have on the town area and for the people who are residents who come. So I spoke to Mike Jaley at length about this, and they would like to install a permanent performance stage there and a place for permanent restrooms. So when they have events, they'll have the stage and also have the bathroom. Now this would be more expensive. This is just a portion towards the total cost of that investment that Mike Jaley believes he can raise the additional funding to be able to get this ready and finished by the deadline outlined in the federal guidelines. And Mike Jaley is on the call to be able to answer questions after the event. After the presentation. So our next item again is under quality of life, and this is sidewalks. And most specifically, it is the Stratfield Road, Fairfield Woods Four Corner installation and the Southport connectivity project. I'm going to have Bill Hurley come up and speak a little bit about both these projects.
This request seeks to supply funding to complete these projects. The grant applications were made circa 2017, 2018. The town boards approved these projects for fiscal year 20, and the grants are capped. The Stratfield Village Association and the town have been working together on the Four Corners project at the intersection of Stratfield Road, commonly known as Route 59, and Fairfield Woods Road. The broader project includes streetscapes, pedestrian improvements to the Stratfield Village Business District to enhance pedestrian safety and mobility, and to create and renovate the commercial center of the Stratfield neighborhood. Work is expected to include the installation of concrete sidewalks, new curbing, landscaping, ornamental streetlights, and other appurtenances. The project encompasses the Four Corners, Stratfield and Fairfield Woods, and their respective approaches. And we can go out, on end of those approaches and reach Owen Fish Park. For the Southport connectivity, this would be along the Post Road corridor in Southport, and will utilize consistent streetscape treatments, ADA compliant sidewalks, pedestrian ramps, curbs, pedestrian signals, traffic bulb out as a form of traffic calming, pavement markings, minor landscaping, and other safety improvements. The project is focused on both sides of Route 1 in Southport, stretching from the exit 19 Pease Avenue and along the Kings Highway West and Hulls Highway intersections on the western side. The area was identified as needing improvements following a state-funded road safety audit conducted in 2016, which identified numerous issues regarding the lack of pedestrian amenities and the conditions of the sidewalks and the infrastructure. Project goal is to improve the safety of pedestrians and the connectivity along the Post Road while improving the economic development of the area.
The next item is under town modernization, diversity and inclusion consultant for $75,000 to work with our human resources director. A consultant will review the blueprint assembled by the Racial Equity and Justice Task Force and look at the goals, actions, and timelines identified. We believe this diversity and inclusion consultant will assist with the implementation of recommendations as adopted by the Board of Selectmen. And our next item is HVAC for our public schools. So obviously this has been an issue that's been brought up repeatedly, especially in light of COVID and during the early, when we had some very hot days, a lot of emails from families, but this has been an issue that the schools have been looking at for some time. And while most of the air conditioning projects that the school school board or school administration has presented to the waterfalls are really far out into the future, I spoke to the superintendent and we had a discussion about it, and I said if we could put $1 million toward air conditioning, you know, what project do you think you could get together and have a sort of shovel ready and be able to get it done within the guidelines? And they identified the 6th grade wing at Fairfield Woods Middle School. Now, while this $1 million is only a portion of it, I shared with the superintendent that I would stand in support of the school district coming forward with a funding request for the additional amount to get it done in time. And the school district also has committed that they'll be able to put in some funding as well toward this. And I know the superintendent wasn't able to be here tonight, but Angelis is on the line, as well as the chairwoman, Christine Vitale, and the vice chairman, Nick Asa. So they are here to just talk a little bit about this item. And I'll let you decide who's gonna speak.
I don't know if anyone wants to go before me or Ms. Vitale. I don't know.
Thank you, First Selectman Kupchak, for including this project in the plan. I am going to hand it over to Mr. Papageorge, who has been working with the HVAC consultants and can just give a little bit more background as to what this project would look like. I think we all agree that HVAC has always been an area of concern, but over the last year, it has just strengthened our commitment to trying to improve the air quality in our buildings, both for the health and safety of our teachers and our students, but also just for the health of the building itself. Mr. Papageorge?
Yep. So Mr. Cummings asked me to look at some different areas and different buildings and see where we could, what we could move on to get shovel ready, as you said, and have this project done before the guidelines. We looked at a few elementary schools, and then we looked at the Fairfield Woods Middle School. And we went with the Fairfield Woods Middle School. We felt that it would help us bring the 3 middle schools up to more of an equal equation. Roger Ledlow Middle School, as we all know, is 100% air conditioned. Tomlinson Middle School is about 90% air conditioned. And Woods Middle School is right around that 40 to 50% air conditioning. So this project that we're going to present is going to help us bring Fairfield Woods up to the standards of the rest of the middle schools. As you mentioned, this is only a portion of the project costs, and we will be looking at other avenues to come up with the remaining budget to get this project completed.
Thank you, Angelis. The next item is on, again, town modernization and infrastructure, town Board of Education fiber optic network for $2.7 million. So the town currently leases the fiber optic lines through a managed network provider, and these expenses, a portion of the annual expenses, are $341,673 per year, and this cost goes up every 5 years at a contract renewal. And so we thought that this would take some pressure off our annual operating budget and be a positive thing for our community. And I have Dave Kelly, our IT director, on the line, who can explain a little bit more about this item.
Well, I couldn't have said it better. Currently, the town and the Board of Education share a leased fiber optic network that connects roughly 20 town facilities and 20 school facilities to each other and to the internet. And we lease that through a managed service provider. The purpose of this proposal is to exercise municipal gain rights to install our own fiber optic network cabling on utility poles rather than leasing it from a third party. This is basically a way to save taxpayer money going forward. And it's just kind of the classical rent versus buy decision.
Thank you, Dave. Our next item is under, again, town modernization, and it's paving for $3 million. So there's already a townwide evaluation in progress by an outside consultant who is rating every single road in our town in order to develop a prioritized list of solutions, repairs, and paving. And they also will look at a sidewalk evaluation as part of this. This is, I think our town needs to catch up on its paving, so this was an important one. And again, as we talked about, we want to be able to give everybody in our community something from this. And to most of us, paving is touched by every single person in our community. We drive on the roads, and we obviously are impacted by them, as also the sidewalks. So we felt that this would be a good investment in catching up on our paving and having it done in a methodical way by an evaluation by a professional consultant. Next item is traffic lights. So when I originally had this conversation with our Bucky, John Marsilio, DPW director, and he explained that our town's intersections, our lights, our lighting, our whole traffic light system is really quite outdated, and that it would cost approximately $3 million to do all 15 intersections that the town maintains. That's not including the state maintained intersections. But if any of you drive around town, you think these lights aren't really synced up right, you're sitting at a light and you sit in another light. Some lights stay much longer, they stay shorter. There's a lot of flow issues, traffic issues, and so this would be the first part of a multi-phased redoing of our traffic light situation. And I think, again, this would impact a lot of our residents because of the safety and also the traffic flow that I know all the other elected officials hear about from their constituents about traffic and flow and safety. So that's why we added that into the prioritized list. Next item is hybrid town meetings. So I talked about this with a lot of our elected officials, that I wanted us to learn something from the experience from COVID, and not just the bad things, but also the positive things, and how we were able to conduct town business virtually throughout the entire pandemic. And what I heard from mostly our residents is how much they enjoyed being able to interact virtually with our town boards and not have to, go to a meeting in person. Also heard from other elected officials that it really helped them, for example, if they're traveling or if they have responsibilities with their children, they could still attend the meeting and be part of the meeting. And we thought we would be able to do this a bit more quick than we actually could when we got really down into it. It's a bit more complex, being able to outfit the rooms specifically with microphones and all of the things so that residents and elected officials could attend virtually while the meeting was also being attended by some people in person, and that everyone could attend it almost like they're together. And so we are working on that, and obviously could have asked for this funding through an appropriation like we can with really anything, but we wanted to put this on the list. We thought it was a good thing to use the recovery funds for because this was sort of a COVID, something born out of COVID. And so that's what this funding, we're requesting $400,000 to be able to do. So at the back, you'll see sort of an outline of all the items and how much they cost. And there's a little designation next to them. I can't see it from here on the screen. But you can see how much they cost, if they've been on the capital planning list, if they've already been approved, and if they're something more new. And so I just wanted to say, the public can email all of the members. I just want to explain how this process works. This is a workshop. This was so that our elected officials could get a sense of what the administration has been working on in a priority list. We wanted to get feedback from our elected officials as well as our community, and then take all of that feedback and then produce a final list, and then bring it before the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and the RTM, like we would any other funding projects, so that we could vote and then get moving. We want to get moving as quickly as possible because of the deadline, and we want to make sure we are able to get the projects done in our community the most efficient way we could. And so I'm very proud that we actually only 5 minutes over my time, but I thought we're right on the money here. So I am going to now open it up. And again, we have the presenters who are any item that's been on here, except someone who can answer questions about it. We are leaving an hour for elected officials to ask questions, and then we're going to open up to the public to give comment on items, on projects that they like or support. And then, of course, any elected official that wants to reach out to me and my administration for any additional questions over the month of August. And before we set a vote up in September, my door's open, my phone's open. I'm happy to hear your comments and your ideas. So I'm going to go to the first person. Is Board of Finance member John Matola. Go ahead, John.
Thank you. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that presentation. I'm going to have a lot of questions, but I'm not going to ask them tonight because I'm sure I'll think of some more when we vote on this over the next couple of months. The one thing I was, I guess, curious about, concerned about is the social services and mental health funding. I guess one example would be the Operation Hope, where we want to give $150,000 towards them, and then you break down food services manager $70,000, homeless resource center staff $45,000, so on and so forth. I'm assuming that this $150,000 is going to be a one-time contribution to Operation Hope. And thereafter, I know we'll probably, like we usually do for nonprofits, give some money to some of the nonprofits, but I'm assuming that thereafter Operation Hope is going to have to assume the costs of these, it looks like some new positions here. And I don't know if anybody's here to speak to that. I guess my question is.
I think, yeah, they are, but thank you, John, and that's a good question. And so absolutely, when we talked to all three of the nonprofits, we made it very clear that this is a one-time shot. You know, we looked at these three nonprofits who do really a majority of the heavy lifting around the community, assisting our residents. And so we said to them, if we could give you some money one time out of this gift from the federal government, you know, what would you need and how would you use it? And so this is what they gave us, and so we put it in there, and they are fully acknowledging that this is only a one-time cost, and it is not going to be funded in the future.
That's it for now. I don't want to, I'll have more questions as we go through this process. Thank you for the presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. Oh, the next is RTM member Sharon Pastilli.
Hi, Brenda. Hope you're well. Thank you for the presentation. Through you, I have a question for Mr. Papageorge or perhaps Ms. Vitale. I was wondering if there are additional HVAC projects that would be ready to go, because to me, with the rising temperatures, like each early summer just getting hotter and hotter, COVID has, really brought to the forefront what we've already known for quite some time, and that is that the ventilation in our schools where there isn't air conditioning is just grossly inadequate. And so, is it possible to allocate more of these funds towards HVAC? And are there projects that would be ready to go? And what might be the associated, cost estimates for those?
Would you like me to take that?
Mr. Papageorge, why don't you take that?
So we're currently working with an engineer firm under the Board of Ed operating budget to evaluate all of our buildings in the district, to look at the cost associated with adding air conditioning. But when I say air conditioning, I shouldn't just say air conditioning. It's the indoor air quality. So when we look at pricing out air conditioning, we're looking at adding the VFRs, adding ductwork, adding or modifying the BOS systems. Involved with that would also include looking at electrical systems in the buildings to see if the current system could handle the new equipment, modifying or adding sprinkler systems for fire suppression. As we go through and we're ripping down ceilings to add ductwork, we would have to add those in as well. And also included in our evaluation is the acoustic ceilings in the buildings themselves, along with, if we're taking down ceilings and putting new ceilings back up, it doesn't make sense to put old T8 light bulbs in. So we would be looking at replacing the existing fixtures with LED lights as we go through. So we are working with an engineer company to establish what buildings, what the priority is, and what the cost would be to add those systems as we move through the district. The goal is to get them onto our waterfall chart. As Ms. Kupchak mentioned, we do have one or two of those projects way off in the future on the waterfall, but re-looking at the waterfall and maybe getting some of them in sooner would work once we get final better numbers on those projects.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. The next RTM member, moderator, Karen Wackerman.
Shoot. Thank you, Brenda. Sorry for that. Thank you to you and your administration. I can tell a lot of work and thought went into this, so I appreciate that. I did have a question about the police request. You know, it's nearly 4 million, and I'm wondering if somebody can break that down a little more about how we got to that number.
Thank you, Ms. Wackerman. I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Chief John Buccarati. He can provide a little more detail into the project.
Thank you.
Good evening. So this plan calls for an officer safety package from Axon. The total cost over it's a 10-year plan. So the total cost for equipping 110 officers with cameras, tasers, vehicle cameras, and off-site storage, the actual cameras and the tasers itself would be $3,095,000. The fleet project, which would equip the cars with the license plate readers and the cameras, would be $669,000. And again, this is over a 10-year period.
Oh, okay. So the almost 4 million has to be spent by 2026, right?
Yes.
So
this is a one-time cost.
Okay. And then
because
they keep.
We're buying it in a bundle, it actually reduces the cost by a little over 1.5 million.
And the 10 years is how long you expect the equipment to work? Is that?
No, they actually provide a ongoing contract and service for 10 years.
Oh, okay.
They will give us new cameras every 3 years, I'm sorry, into this contract. We'll get brand new cameras from them.
Oh, okay. And with this, Chief, would this taser deal replace the tasers requested in the budget? Is that it would? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
So our next question is from Meredith Onak.
Hi, Meredith Odenak, District 4. My question is about the diversity and inclusion consultant. I was curious where the 75,000 number came from. Was there any consideration of adding a full-time position within the Department of HR? And was there any consideration around creating a budget for that consultant to use?
Well, this is our best estimate until we do a full RFP scope of services, but $75,000 is the typical estimate for a consultant. And so this is where we thought we would start off, and with some of this recovery funding.
And is there any consideration about creating something more long-term and funding for that?
This is about the recovery funding, and we haven't received a recommendation report from the task force as of yet either. So this is just for recovery funding. We won't start building our budget till late fall for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, just getting it. Next is Scott Nichols, RTM member. Scott?
I actually didn't have a question. I was just late to the meeting, and I just wanted to let you know that I was here.
Okay, Prue, if you could note, Scott Nichols is here. And Jay Walsh is up next.
Hi, Brenda.
Hi, Jay.
Thanks for everything that you're doing. I know all this money is going to go to good use and to help a lot of people in our town. My question is, I know you, as far as as well as I am, has been an advocate to finally get a solution to fixing the Rooster River. So the money that you're appropriating to the Rooster River, my question is, what are you guys going to do to alleviate the flooding? Where's that money actually going to be used?
So this is part of it's been on the waterfall. When you attended those meetings, they talked about these phases. And this is the first part of this, trying to do the mitigation efforts, but I'm happy to have Bill come up and explain a little bit more if that's helpful. Can you hear me, Jay?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, very good.
Hi, Jay. Yeah, the Rooster River, there'd be 5 detention areas that are being proposed or being designed right now, and when they're constructed, they will provide storage for when we get a heavy rainfall. The detention areas will fill up and hold back the water much like a reservoir, and then slowly release the rate of runoff and flow downstream. This may not totally solve the problem of Rooster River flooding, but it will definitely help, and it's really one of the only options that we have that won't create a problem downstream. By holding back the water and releasing it at designed rates, this should benefit almost everybody that's downstream from that holding pond or that holding area. The proposal will be for the construction of the pond, the potential for wetland mitigation, because we're going to have to go for permits and stuff, landscaping, and inspection of the project to make sure they're constructed according to plan. And it also could include potential easement or property acquisitions as well. And a key thing is that we've been having discussions with the city of Bridgeport, who are going to be an active participant. And so they are going to be putting aside some funding for detention areas, like for Fairchild Wheeler Golf Course, and maybe even for some other projects on their side of the river. I hope that answers your question.
A lot of it, Bill. Thank you very, very much for everything that you're doing. I personally appreciate what you do. But I just have one quick thing just to ask you. So you know as well as I know, a lot of this flooding happens because of debris that's in the brooks. So I mean, is it a loss? Is it almost an impossibility, Bill, to to keep cleaning out the brooks to keep it from flooding? Does that make sense to you?
Well, as you know, we've been doing public awareness campaigns, and I have a very interested resident who's been trying to organize springtime and maybe even fall cleanups along the Rooster River. And so I think that's very important that, especially when we have advance notice of storms, sometimes you don't, but if we have advance notice of storms, you know, put away your patio, furniture. Don't put logs and leaf cuttings and trunks and, you know, branches right on the edge of the Rooster River, where if it overflows its bank, all that debris, you know, goes down to the next culvert, so to speak. And we can, if there's money left over from the design, we did have a little contingency. I could have the consultant look at that if there is money available. And if not, then the town engineering department can look at that. That's a good point about the debris, because a lot of times our system is able to hold it, and DPW actually goes out and cleans what we call the headers. It's a header list. I think there's almost 200 of them, where they go out and they inspect all the fronts of the culverts to make sure they're clean. But depending on the type of storm and maybe the time of year, within 1 hour, some of these get clogged up immediately, and they got to go back out again. But there's only so many times, you know, during a storm with so many headers that you can go out there. But you bring up a good point, and certainly any questions or, you know, comments or ideas you have, you know, you can always reach me.
You're on mute, Jay. Jay, you're on mute.
Thanks, Bill. I mean, what we saw at the press conference down at the cemetery was unbelievable as far as debris. So I know you're going to take care of it. So that's it. I thank you for everything. Okay, Bill.
All right, thank you, Jay.
Jay, you bring up a good point. As Bill has mentioned, one of the residents in that area, I know Selectman Flynn and I participated in the cleanup 1 year where he did a whole organized cleanup, and there was a lot of debris in neighbors' backyards in the Rooster River. But this is going to have a real impact, and we wouldn't have put it on the list if we didn't think it would help. So our next elected official is Lori Charlton.
Thank you. Lori Charlton, Board of Finance. Thank you again to the First Select Woman and her team for the presentation and all the work that went into it. I have two questions. One is on the proposal for the $3 million of paving funds. And my question is that, I think I heard the term catch up in paving. So is this amount meant to be incremental to a normal amount of a paving budget that will be included in our operating budget, you know, next year and in the future? Or is this meant to reduce operating costs and thereby, you know, result in a cliff in future budgets? That's my first question.
Well, thank you, Lori. No, I actually, that's why I said it was a catch-up, because I think we shouldn't create any cliffs in the budget. We should continue to include annual paving in the budget, but we were talking about going forward with bonding to do some catch-up paving and this consulting work where they would identify a priority list, you know, when we'd be able to actually go through that list, not just with this funding, but with operational paving funding as well.
Okay, thank you. That's good to hear. And my second question is on the electric vehicles. And I'm in favor of, you know, replacing any vehicles that need to be replaced with something that's more environmentally friendly. But I guess my question goes back to the question that came up during the budget process, and I think that the issue that, or the question, one of the questions that caused this item to be eliminated from the budget. And it's a question of, you know, was there an analysis done to see if we really need this many town vehicles, or, you know, have we looked at other options, perhaps, you know, providing mileage reimbursement to employees? You know, the cars, a lot of cars seem to sit in that lot. Do we really need them all and need to replace them all? So I guess one thing I hope to see in the future on this item is a more fulsome analysis of the need to have this many vehicles and the level of use they'd get. So maybe that's more of a comment instead of a question, but I don't know if you want to address that.
I appreciate that, Lori, and we did do an analysis of them, and this isn't a full replacement of all the cars. We you know, reviewed the staff people who do use those cars every single day for town business, and we didn't include in this total, cars that are not used, all the time.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I look forward to seeing that analysis, and thank you again to you and your team for having this meeting and for all the information.
Thank you very much. Our next official is RTM member Bill Gerber.
Thank you. Was Meredith before me? If not, I will certainly go ahead. But can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, thank you for Selectwoman Kupchak. Thanks for taking my question. On the social services, quick question on those grants, including, I guess, especially Operation Hope. Are those positions that we're going to see sort of annually in the budget going forward after the grants sort of run out?
So that was just, John Mottola had asked that at the beginning. No, this is when we went to these nonprofits, we said to them, you know, what would you do if we gave you some money and come back with a proposal? This is a one-time shot just with this American Recovery money. And this is what they came back with.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear John's question.
That's okay.
So those positions, I guess they'll have to fund them through their own fundraising going forward, because we only give them, I think Operation Hope is only about $25,000 a year. Okay. The second question I had was on the COVID recovery funds, you know, for people in need. Who's going to administer that and sort of, you know, set up the guidelines and administer it and all that?
So, Julie, can you address Representative Gerber's question? Thank you.
Sure. So, Bill, it'll be set up very similarly to the COVID relief fund. That there's we have to create a committee that will approve the applications once the applicants are deemed eligible and vetted by the social workers. The way it worked with the other fund was that people would apply, the social workers would do the assessment, and then we would make recommendations to the committee that would approve it. And Operation Hope was the holder of the funds and would then issue the check. We haven't set up the structure for it yet because we need to have the approval first.
Okay, thank you. And so all this, I suppose, is subject to sort of government, federal government audit as well, right? So I guess you'll have people reviewing all that at some point, I would assume. Are you expecting that? Okay. And my last is more of a point. I don't know if it's really a question. I just want to let you know how I feel about the HVAC. And I think I wouldn't be alone. I would think there's a pretty popular view would be that, you know, the lack of decent HVAC in many of our schools was probably one of the biggest sources of misery over the last couple of years, that you could directly trace, you know, how we performed versus some other towns in terms of being able to have kids in school. You can directly trace that to, you know, not having air conditioning and having poor air circulation. And it just, you know, it seems to me we need to do a lot more. And, you know, whether it's through this or some other mechanism, you know, the urgency hasn't really, I mean, no.
Bill, your connection is a little spotty there, and you're kind of freezing and breaking up. Oh, I don't know where Bill went. I'll just point out, and I understand Bill's point about the air conditioning, But again, the town administration does not decide what items that the school district brings forward to the capital planning and when to ask for it. So, you know, the air conditioning items are not really in the front or the recent waterfall list from the school administration. But again, I know that this was an issue that parents cared about, so that's why I took it upon myself to add the $1 million in there and reach out to the superintendent and ask if he could pull together with Angelus and his team a shovel-ready project that we could apply this money to, so we could at least get the ball rolling, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I lost you there. I'm back. Thank you.
Okay.
But I would like to say, I think the school system then should have asked for more. You know, this has been lingering for so long, and it is the kernel, it is the source of so many issues and potential and future issues. People getting sick, having to close schools down. You know, it just should be taken care of. It should be a major priority, in my opinion. All right, thank you. I've
right,
said.
So I think Angelus mentioned that they're working on a sort of larger RFP with all like costs and stuff to bring forward to the town bodies. So we're just hoping that this $1 million, you know, will be helpful toward the air conditioning of Fairfield Woods to complete it, so it's on parity with the other middle schools.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Next question is from Representative Vergara.
Thank you so much. And this is Jill Vergara for District 7 for the RTM. And I wanted to thank you and your team for hosting this conversation. I'm really excited to get going on this. I think that there were a bunch of national organizations encouraging towns to have these conversations from March. And so I'm really excited that we're starting to get input from the public and hearing the list that you've put together, which it's clear that you put a lot of work into this. So thank you. I was actually going to piggyback off of Bill because I agree with Representative Pistilli and also Representative Gerber that HVAC in the schools is a really important issue. And I wanted to go back to Mr. Papageorge and see if he could just for the facts delineate which schools are not fully air conditioned. As far as I'm aware, I think it's 8 of the 19 campuses aren't fully air conditioned.
I have to apologize. I have the book that delineates that, and I don't have it with me tonight.
Okay.
I left it in my other office.
Okay.
So I could be happy to get that out to you.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. I think it's 4 elementaries. I thought it was Jennings, North Stratfield, Dwight, and Osborne Hill. And then the 2 middle schools, I think that I have air conditioning issues outstanding are Tomlinson and Woods. You said Tomlinson has what percentage of air conditioning? You had mentioned it.
Tomlinson's approximately 90% air conditioned.
Okay.
The big air conditioning deficiency at Tomlinson at this point is the gymnasium.
Okay. And so that's like a good standalone project as well, because it's just the gym outstanding. That's good to know. And then we are also, we have air conditioning issues to resolve at both high schools, both Ward and Ludlow. Do you happen to know what percentage of the high schools are air conditioned?
I have that.
Unfortunately, again, I don't have that book with me. I do know we are currently working on adding air conditioning to Ward's cafeteria, which would bring them both high schools more equal to what they offer for air conditioning.
Okay.
Mr. Papageorge, I can jump in. Fairfield Ludlow High School is 45% air conditioned. Fairfield Woods High School is 40% air conditioned at this point in time. But again, you know, in terms of shovel ready, these, you know, upgrading the HVAC in these schools, retrofitting it is a large project, which is why, you know, town officials know we hired the HVAC consultant to come in and to really give us a firm number of what it is going to cost and what the needs are, because each school is different. I am not in any way saying that the priority is not there, and the fact that they are not first and foremost on the waterfall at this point does not signify that they're not important. It's on that will be coming before town boards in this year, in the coming months. Hopefully, the work is being done right now on the waterfall, and it's definitely number one priority in terms of our facilities for the board. And we appreciate the $1 million that is being allocated at this point. It is not going to cover, I want to be clear, that $1 million will not do the entire 6th grade wing at Woods. The school district is going to have to look at that. The Board of Ed, hasn't had this discussion about the Woods project, so we're going to have to meet and discuss this as well in the coming months. But I think that we all appreciate that it is a priority for multiple reasons. So I thank you for your advocacy on bringing it up again.
Okay, thank you. And I also have a question for the town side. I wanted to see if it's possible to piggyback on the Board of Ed's audit for HVAC for the town facilities, because I'm equally concerned about our town infrastructure and ensuring that we are taking care and maintaining our buildings properly. And for me, HVAC is a big piece of that. And I know I heard stories about mushrooms growing in the town hall carpet. And I know that Jackie Durrell is not air conditioned, and we could also be generating a little bit more. We could be using Jackie Durrell a little bit more if we had it air conditioned. So I just wanted to see if you had been contemplating any kind of audit for the town HVAC issues.
So again, Jill, we looked at a broad list here. We're trying to touch various amounts throughout the community in various ways. And I mentioned this to residents in responding to so many emails, is that this is not the last $25 million the town of Fairfield is ever spending. So there are items that can come up. We have our capital planning workshop in October, and we're going to review that with all the town bodies, and we are going to always have a list of projects that we can put forth to the town bodies for approval. So this is just for the recovery fund.
I realize that it's just about priorities and pushing the projects that are most important to the front. And I just think that mold issues, we've seen it happen in Coleytown, and the way that HVAC impacts COVID issues and just health and safety, I see it as being a high priority. But I do appreciate all the things that you put on your list, and I know it's hard to do that prioritization. I think that in the chat, someone had mentioned that they would love to see what all of the requests were, because it's hard to evaluate what our priority list should be without knowing what other requests may have been that didn't make the list. And I agree. I think that that would be helpful for everyone to see what was in the kind of realm of possibility. And with regards to that, I know I did receive emails about the resiliency fund from the Flood and Erosion Board. And for me personally, that would be way up top on my priority list. I think it's essential for the town's long-term sustainability. And it's not just for the beach area, but it's for the whole town. We've seen how climate and how all these changes with water and floods have negatively affected towns all over the country. And I'd really just like to be proactive about protecting close to $1 billion of property in Fairfield is what the engineers had estimated that are affected by flooding. So I would really like to put that $1 million in the flood and in the resiliency fund.
So I appreciate that, and I got those emails as well, and I spoke to Bill Hurley about that. The issue with that, Jill, is that there isn't a study, there hasn't been a survey, there hasn't been anything done in that area to have it be shovel ready, so to speak. So I spoke to Bill extensively, and I guess there's been, over the last many years, there was raising of certain parts of Fairfield Beach Road to work on flooding issues, and there was 2 projects that were done and completed. Then there was a 3rd phase that apparently there was a huge amount of pushback from the neighbors on that section, and so that project is not to go forward. But as far as this resiliency piece is that we all received a whole lot of emails about that it's not shovel ready. And so there's not enough research, engineering, or anything done on it, and it wouldn't meet the criteria because it wouldn't be done in time with the deadline. But that doesn't mean that's not a project that we can have brought up in the future and have that engineering and survey and all of that work done, and then come forward with a capital request plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next next RTM member is Mary Spoiler.
Hi, Marcy Spoliar, District 4.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I had thank you very much for this presentation. I'm really excited about a lot of the items on here. I had a few questions. One was in regards to, we only get the money, we get half the money in one year and half the money in the other year. And I was confused at how we're delineating which of these projects gets the money in the first year versus the second year. How does that work?
So it's kind of tricky because, you know, we have fiscal years and they count it like in calendar years. So we didn't break it up, but there are some projects that we are going to put into the second year, for example, just because we're not prepared yet, that they'll be more ready then. So we're going to break them up so that they're evenly spaced between the two, the allocations of money. Because some of it might be, you know, you put some of the design or the initial phase money in the first year and then you still finish it up in the second year. It just requires that all of it be done within the timeline.
Okay, so that's not something that we've looked at yet. So, but some of these projects might have to wait, can't get started right away. It's not, as soon as this is approved, we might be waiting a year or more for these projects.
Oh, no, we're going to have projects starting right away, and that's the whole point of this, is we do want to get going on some of the stuff we've already had a lot of work done on, and that can get done. Obviously, those playgrounds, boom, we can start doing those right away. The guardrail project, like Bill described earlier, that's already design phase and ready to go. The consulting on the paving, you know, that piece would probably be spread out over the 2 years for the whole entire paving project. So some of these, yes, are ready to go, and some of them are going to take a little bit more time, as with the air conditioning, right? So we don't have the full, we'll have the $1 million set aside. We're expecting the school district to come back with an RFP. They said they could kick some money into it, and then I'm expecting them to come forward with a proposal that I can put on the agenda for the Board of Selectmen and then go through the town bodies. Then we'll have all the money and we'll get going on that project. And again, this is just our priority list. We want input. We think, you know, we appreciate the positive comments from the body for thanking us for the list that we put together and the comprehensiveness of it. But obviously we want input. And then when the final list is presented in September, then we make those decisions on how they roll out based on where we are with those projects.
Great, thank you. And then also a couple more questions. In regarding the Stratfield Four Corners project, do you know, does that money include the $100,000 that the town already basically promised towards that project, or is that in addition to the $100,000 that was already promised from the town?
In addition.
Great, thank you very much. And then one other question regarding sidewalk evaluations. Is that only for current sidewalks, or are you also going to be looking at possibly adding sidewalks in areas that might need them more to make them more walkable and more friendly to, you know, to our community, or is it just for the current sidewalks?
So the way Bill, well, we're going to evaluate all of it, because as Bill described it to me, so yeah, we could go in and repair current sidewalks fairly easily. And then what Bill said, there are, he has files on neighborhoods that already went through the whole process, and, you know, I don't know if you've been involved with this, but there may be just a handful of neighbors who want a sidewalk, and then when the town goes out and starts talking about it and does a survey, many times there's tremendous pushback from the neighbors, especially the ones whose sidewalk is going to be on their front lawn, and now they're going to have to shuffle it every winter. So he said you would try to go forward with the project A for the repairers, because those are the easiest, and then go to those areas of town where he's already had buy-in and people want it.
Great, so that money might include new sidewalks. Great, thank you.
Correct. Thank you. Our next, member is, Board of Finance member Jack Destani.
Good evening, First Selectwoman Kupchak. Thank you for
Evening.
all the work you did. I want to echo everybody's comments about the obvious effort that everybody put into this list. I do have a quick question for the chief and the deputy chief on the tasers and the body cams.
Sure.
Hey, Chief, how are you? Hey, Deputy Chief, how's it going?
Good.
Good,
How are
good.
you?
Thank you also for all the work you and the police and of course all the first responders do. I have a quick question just on the tasers and body cams. I know from past experience, some are eligible for grants where reason why I'm asking is I'm thinking some of the money, perhaps could be used some other need that the police department has, or is the whole 3.5 million, I think it was, for what you're asking for now, is that like a total amount? Did you have to commit to that amount?
So that will be the total amount that we commit over 10 years. It's a one-time expenditure. These are required by statute. So, both the camera and the in-car will be required. And, it's in our best interest to have a less than lethal option with the TASER 7, which is the most advanced on the market right now.
I understand. I'm thinking about past experience where sometimes the body cams are reimbursable through grants, and then you could use some of that money for some other need the police department has. I just was curious if you thought about
So
that piece of it.
We have, our previous system was purchased on a grant. And in order to maintain that previous system, it'd be a significantly more costlier investment to maintain that over the 10 years. So
even with the grant,
this is actually a cheaper option. Yeah. So we have used grants before in the past for this, and our current system is funded by a grant.
right? So if I hear from hearing you correctly, after you studied it, you thought that it was more cost efficient to go this route than to try to get more grant money and then save whatever was left over from that for some other need the police department has.
I don't believe that we would actually be eligible for a second grant for cameras.
Okay, that's my question. All right, very good. Thank you again both very much for all the hard work you guys do and the department.
Thank you, Jack. And so we have 3 more people who are signed up for questions, and we have about 15 minutes late of the allocated time for elected officials, and then we're going to go to the public. So our next RTM member is Rick Grauer. Then we have 2 more after that, and then we'll go to the public.
Thank you for taking me. I had a question on Perry Green bulkhead.
Okay.
You've cited that there's several materials involved in the current bulkhead. What is the material that is proposed to be used on the new bulkhead, and what elevation will it be built to?
Well, it's got to be determined by the consultant, Rick. We haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, fine. Electric cars. The town cars, the Crown Vics, are currently hand-me-downs from the police department. Are we talking about not having hand-me-downs now from the police department? I noticed over by the dump, and there's several more current police cars there that have been stripped of doors and hoods and things. Are we no longer passing police cars down for town use?
Yeah, the idea is to replace the cars that we really need for our town employees with energy-efficient cars.
Well, the police, I believe, only use their cars for about 100,000 miles. When the current technology gets cars going considerably longer, if they're maintained.
Well, I
will
don't
they
know.
not be passed down?
I think they probably sell them. The Crown Vics obviously have not been used in the police force in a very long time. So.
Yeah, correct. Okay. the Jennings Beach concession, you're talking about refacing the building and everything. That would come under a FEMA situation on your 50% rule. What's the value of the current building? Are we going to go over that and then have to make the whole concession FEMA compliant?
Now, I think that Anthony would have checked that, but if Anthony, you want to chime in? This is just for a facelift of the outside of the concession, kitchen upgrade, improve the lifeguard office, and sunshades for people to sit on. I don't think that surpasses the total cost of the building.
Correct. I don't have that number with me, but I believe that we were under the number.
All right. Okay, and my last one, because the others have been answered, on your fiber optic program, we're now leasing it. We're talking about building our own. How about the maintenance of it? If a tree limb falls on one of these fiber optic lines and comes down, we've got to send a crew out, or hire a crew to do the repairs. Currently, I imagine that's handled because of the lease situation. Has that been figured in?
Yeah, my understanding is it comes with the maintenance. It has a maintenance contract with it.
Okay, thank you. That'll do it.
Thank you. Our next RTM member is Hank Ferentz.
Thank you, Mrs. Kupchak. This is Hank Ferentz, RTM District 8. I just want to thank you, your staff, and the department heads for presenting a comprehensive list of projects which will benefit many of our citizens in multiple areas of town. I look forward to supporting all your projects as presented. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Hank. The next RTM member is Bill Perigine.
Oh, yeah, good evening, Madam First Selectwoman. Bill Perigine, District 9. Thank you for all your preparation and for the comprehensive presentations that certainly will impact all in our town. I'm a huge proponent of the proposed Flood and Erosion Control Board's Resiliency Fund. I understand the limitations based upon what you just shared. To echo Representative Vargara's comments, the floodplain still remains in a very vulnerable position as the memories of the catastrophic devastation fades from Irene and Sandy. It'll just take one storm to remind us of how vulnerable we are, not only as residents of the floodplain, but certainly all of the critical infrastructure of our town, right? Police headquarters, fire headquarters, town hall, multiple homes of worship. What other projects are currently in the works that might potentially qualify for funding to help mitigate the inevitable flooding and erosion that we will continue to see with sea level rise and in increasing storm intensities?
Bill, Bill, I don't know. Do you have anything to add to that?
Just the fact that the town's always looking at grants, there's hazard mitigation grants that are available. They come around, applications once a year, usually toward the end of the year, so we'll always look for that. We do have on the waterfall chart, a couple of years out, the South Benson pump station. We're always looking for, we're working with the Fairfield Flood and Erosion Control Board. We have a list of projects that we working with, trying to get them grant money or through, like, matter of fact, one for Rickards Beach area was just back in March, and so process of an RFP for that one, hiring an engineer. We are we're aware of the Flood and Erosion Control Board's list, and possibly working with them and trying to come with the grant might not apply. They may have to.
Were you able to hear that, Representative?
Not very well, but I could certainly follow up offline.
I'm sorry. He's gonna come up and actually let him come up and explain that to you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Again, I just think we're in a very vulnerable position. We've got this funding, and I get it. The proposed fund does not meet the established criteria, but think about how vulnerable our town is. Not only that floodplain and all of the structures and all of the neighborhoods in that area that were gentrified. You know, I'm knocking on wood as we speak. We've dodged many bullets. I think we would be remiss if we didn't consider flood mitigation, you know, projects moving forward to protect not only that area and all of the renovations and improvements that have been made to those structures that really took on a huge tax burden with the revaluation, but most importantly, many of the vital properties that really are the nucleus of our town infrastructure.
Yeah, no, Bill, I totally agree. As I said, we're working with the Fairfield Flood and Erosion Control Board. I'm aware of their list that they have of projects. We've been working with them. We've actually been compiling together with the senior civil engineer and the DPW directors. And so we are aware of that. Some of the projects, like for instance, there was a question of, well, what are some of the projects that we aren't aware of or whatever? Well, one of them is the Turney Creek, Riverside Drive, siphon, tie gate, and bridge or / culvert replacement. That's about $5 million. So that would take a large portion of you know, this bonding or this receiving package that you know, the ARPA funds. But there are several other ones. The South Benson pump station proposal. That's going to be a large capital improvement project. One of the good news is that there may be some grant money available for these projects. We're always looking for that, and usually they come around in the fall season, and we'll be looking at that. One of the things that we may have to do, though, is a lot of times when you apply for those type of projects, you need a benefit cost analysis. So we may have to hire an engineer to take a look at that and assist with filling out the applications. We recently, the boards approved earlier this spring for Rickards Beach, $100,000 to study a bulkhead project there near the Fairfield Beach Club in between the Jennings and Penfield beaches. And there are a couple of other ones that are listed as well, and we're constantly looking for grant money. And if that grant money is available, we'll have to go through the capital improvement program. We have been working with the Flood and Erosion Control Board on priorities or a timeline. I mean, I have that information, but you can certainly reach out to the members of the Fairfield Flood and Erosion Control Board. As I said, we have been working together. We've tried to do a timeline, and we've tried to do cost estimates and scheduling, and one may apply for, you know, we have a chance for grants.
Well, thank you very much. And so, you know, I gather what you seem to be suggesting is that there are studies that are necessary to move forward with these grants. Is that correct?
Yeah, some of them that would be correct, and they would be taking, by the time you get the study, then you get the permit, then you do it. That would be beyond the timeline. So that was another reason why some of these projects weren't listed in this go around. But we're hoping for additional grant money. Whether it be through FEMA or maybe a second phase of funding for infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the benefits are quite clear, and I think the costs obviously justify the investment. You know, I guess it's typical bureaucracy. You know, I haven't seen any studies to show that horses are any safer, more reliable, or economical than cars, but there are no horses outside. There are cars.
Yeah,
so
I get what you mean.
I get it, but I mean, the benefits are obvious. We're in an extremely vulnerable position. So I'd encourage you and all the others to do whatever it takes to accelerate the process and, you know, cross whatever T's and I's are needed. Again, I think it's obvious. I don't think we need a study. We've lived it. But anyways, I appreciate all of your efforts. Thank you.
No, again, make it clear, the grants are competitive. And so therefore you need the study is the benefit cost ratio. There was a project we did apply for, and then there was even another one for the lower Rooster River where we had a cost benefit,
or benefit cost ratio of like 1.2. They recommend it has to definitely be over 1, but they recommend, you know, benefit cost ratios of 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so, you know, the ones that are just slightly over the amount that you'd be spending versus the benefit, they're not going to go for those. They're going to go for the ones that have the most bang for the buck. And so that's why you need to have the study to determine, you know, how much benefit, because it's very elaborate, the formulas that they use, and they take property values, they take emergency trips, mileage saved during a flood. I mean, it's very elaborate and time consuming that I could have an engineer spend 2 months solid without any interruption just on some of these applications.
Understood. Is there anything that the private citizens can do to help, or the Flood and Erosion Control Board, or any of the neighborhood organizations that have a really, you know, vested interest in this? Is there anything that we could do to be of assistance?
I'll check with the Flood and Erosion Control Board on that, and we can get back to you to see if there's any benefit for that. Obviously, anybody can, you know, send an email. When we go for these applications, public participation is always a big key component for that, and so that would be very important when we get to that stage. So I would say yes, but let me talk to the Flood and Erosion Control Board and find out, and through MetroCog too. That's another agency where sometimes there's funding available, and see what they think. But when we go for the applications, that's when we'd appreciate the public support.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, there's certainly a lot of it in my area, my district, and certainly the neighborhood. So thank you very much for the
Sure.
answer. We appreciate
All right, sure.
all
Thanks,
the
Bill.
efforts, and just let us know what we can do to help. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, so we don't have any, do we? Okay, so Bill, you know, we could look at using some funds perhaps for a broader, to prepare a broader resiliency plan for the town with actual projects and cost estimates like we did for downtown Rooster River. I mean, we do understand the issues obviously there, but these funds do have strict guidelines, and we have to comply with those. But that does not mean that you can't work with the Flood and Erosion Board and your community, your neighborhood, to come up with projects that you think would be valuable, and work with Bill to identify those, and we could apply for grants. And also the remaining funds, if we don't get the entire amount, can go through the town bodies. Like I said earlier, right, the 25 million is not the end of it. You know, the town will still be working and investing in the community.
Yeah, that would be appreciated, and I think it would also be helpful to resurrect the dialogue that we started a few years ago when you were a state representative up in Hartford, and we met with a number of individuals up there. It was back, I think, in 2017 or 2018. So any help that you could afford to resurrect that conversation would be appreciated.
All right, thank you, Bill. So we've come to the end of our elected official question Q&A, and so we're going to open it up to the public. And so far, we have one member of the public who is signed on to speak, and it's George Talbot. George?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, George.
Okay, hey, I think I was the one that kind of was the pain in the rear that sent the emails to everybody about the South Benson pumping station project. And, part of it was because we called the Connecticut basement folks, and they're like, oh, we'll get to you in third week in August after this last rain to help with that sort of thing. So I was talking to folks around the neighborhood who said that during Sandy, that bowl, right, that doesn't have the outlet at Fairfield Beach Road into the Sound anymore, flooded for 10 days before people could get back in their houses. So I guess I'm a little paranoid about overtopping events where the water comes over the dunes. So I think it's definitely worth the town studying this. I mean, the study, I guess this was before your time, first
Okay.
selectwoman, right? Where the 2018 study was done with the South Benson pumping station, blah blah blah. And I guess that was also before your time, where they built the pavilion at Penfield that's below where FEMA wanted it to be. So yeah, that's kind of a bummer, as an engineer. I see, when I see failures of systems, it's usually like 3 or 4 interlocking things. So you've got, these 2 lower things, you don't have the outlet anymore, some of the pipes go the wrong way, and the outlet of South Benson is tidal. So there's a lot of reasons for that water to sit. And I think, and this is going to sound crazy, but I saw a NASA thing that said that the moon's orbit is going to shift in the next decade and give us another 5 inches of high tide. So I think it's worth getting on it now before then, maybe. Anyhow, that was my thing. I'm pretty concerned about that, just as a new homeowner here. Love the town. I think it's really well run. So thank you for giving me a chance to speak.
No, and I appreciate that, and I know that Bill, if you're newer, you said you're new to town, George?
Yeah, we came in June of last year.
Oh, okay. So Bill Hurley is in our engineering department, and he's really very knowledgeable. He's been with our town a really long time, and he is very knowledgeable about all of these drainage issues, flooding issues, and he does put a lot of effort in. And if you would like to have a further dialogue to learn a little bit more about what Bill knows about the South Benson flooding issues and the pump station, please feel free to give him a call. Just call Town Hall and ask to be directed to his department. That's Bill Hurley in our engineering department.
How high on the list of things is flooding in that whole beach area? Because I see you guys are building the catchments for that river, which is closer to Bridgeport, right? Like how?
Well, we put money in for Rooster River because there's been significant flooding there on many occasions.
Oh yeah.
And so that's been a project that's been put on our waterfall, and which is a capital plan project, and it has a lot of the engineering study already done. But the other items, like I mentioned earlier, this is just 25 million for this.
Yeah.
Bill works with our flood and erosion board, and he also has a lot of investment and interest in what's going on in all of these areas. So I would definitely give him a call for a broader discussion so you can understand a little bit more about where the town is on some of these items.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you giving me the chance to speak and to be heard on that issue. Thank you.
Oh, and welcome to Fairfield.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item, the next member of our public is Dylan O'Connor. Dylan, are you on the line? Dylan?
Hi, can you hear me? Yep, can you hear me, Brenda?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I'm called in and trying to juggle dinner duty for the kids. So hope everybody is doing well. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate it. I am the co-president of the Stratfield Village Association, and I'm hopeful that a lot of the RTM members that were a part of this call tonight, as well as the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen, received some emails from some members in our community asking for $300,000 of this money to be used for a project that we've been working on for about 3 to 4 years. It's the streetscape improvements that Bill Hurley touched on earlier. Specifically, the $300,000 request is to have the ornamental lighting put in that would make this part of town consistent with the downtown area. So I just wanted to publicly make that and put that on the record. I think that a lot of people have gotten emails about it, but I appreciate the opportunity to say that. And if there are any questions about the project, then I'm happy to answer those. I've been working with Bill Hurley on this for a long time.
Yes, and it's on the list.
Thank you.
You're aware of that, right?
I am aware of that. Yes, I heard you say that earlier.
Okay. Yeah, Mark Barnhart's been very active in this as well.
Yep.
Our economic development director. Did you have anything else you want to comment on?
No, I mean, general comment is what everyone else has been saying too. Thank you for all your efforts. I mean, I've done a lot with a lot of the folks on this call, you, Brenda, Mark, Bill, Chief Calamaris, and you guys are all really selfless and dedicated to the town. And we really appreciate all your service to the town.
Well, thank you, Dylan. We appreciate that. Our next member of the public is Becky Bunnell from the Sustainability Task Force.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Becky.
Hi, I'm actually going to speak on behalf of Flood and Erosion Control Board at this point. First of all, I wanted to thank the whole group that put together a really great list. There's some very important projects on this list, and I appreciate the time that's gone into creating such a list. I would like, and I also understand that the idea of a resiliency fund is not applicable for this kind of funding because it's a rainy day fund or a fund and it falls outside of the guidelines. But I would encourage us to think about putting in $1 million worth of studies. It seems like there are several projects on this list that are recommendations to hire consultants to look at things. And if the ultimate goal is to get things shovel ready so that we are ready for when a big storm comes, I can easily give you from our flood and erosion control list that we've worked hard with Bill Hurley on. Bill and Laura have been awesome. John Marcelio as well. I mean, just getting to a list that makes a ton of sense for the town of Fairfield. We easily have $1 million worth of studies that would allow us to get to a position where we would be closer to shovel ready so that when these big storms hit, we as a town would be able to apply for these federal disaster relief grants. And we could then use that application to be able to bring money into the town to be much more resilient as a community. So if the idea of a fund itself is ineligible, I can certainly work with Bill to pull together a list of $1 million worth of studies that our engineers, either our engineers or outside engineers would come up with that we could then make our town more resilient. Because I think there are 15% of our housing stock. There are 5 churches, 3 schools, a ton of our historical buildings, many of our municipal, the senior center, Fairfield. I mean, there's just so much of our town is in the floodplain, and we get another big storm like Super Sandy or a bigger storm. Let's say there's a real hurricane. The impact could be huge. So why not take the time now to take the use of these funds that we're being eligible for and do these studies so we're ready to apply for these grants. So I have a strong recommendation that we carve out some amount of that money, $1 million. If we can't put it into a fund, great, let's just do it as a study. But at least we're putting ourselves in the position of becoming a more resilient town, which I think is critical for our long-term sustainability. Thank you for your consideration.
I appreciate that, and that's very good. That's very good feedback. I do appreciate it, and I get it. I get it. We have some significant issues to address throughout the town. And it's devastating. Flooding is devastating. And thank you too, Becky, for the list that you provided under your sustainability hat. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Well, I'd be happy to speak to some of those as well. I think Bob Wall was going to call in and talk to those, so I don't want to take his thunder. Well,
the cars made it, so that was a top priority, and it was one of ours as well. So yeah, I will say that we're the Sustainable Fairfield Task Force is very supportive of the whole EV car program. I think this is a huge step forward, and we are excited to see this on the list. Thank you so much. So I don't see any additional members of the public signed on to comment. So I would just say, again, as I said at the beginning, this isn't the end of the discussion. We really we put a lot of effort into putting this list together, and we want feedback from our elected officials and also from the public. The email addresses, elected officials know my email address, and most residents do as well. Feedback is important. If you want to either call, email, come in, we're happy to discuss what you think about our items that are on this list. And if you do have items that you want to add, what items would you like to remove in place of that? So that's the kind of feedback that would be extraordinarily helpful to us. And so, thank you so much for taking the time to spend the night with us and discuss this. And we are here to listen. Oh, Becky, I'm sorry, did you want to make another comment?
I'm unmuted. It seems like Bob Wall is not on, and I hesitate to make a second comment, but I thank you for taking advantage of, if I could speak on behalf of Sustainable Fairfield Task Force now instead of Flood and Erosion Control Board. One of the things that we would love the town to consider would be a program for particularly our low income residents to be able to make energy retrofits to their home to be more sustainable going forward, to reduce their energy bills. There's a program right now that the state sponsors, which is a home energy audit, and they are offering up to $7,500 worth of rebates if you retrofit your house and make it more energy efficient. And we'd love to use some of these funds to allow all citizens of Fairfield to take advantage of this. Maybe there's a way Fairfield could match those funds so that, you know, our residents could make a more sustainable house for themselves. They'd lower their energy bills over time. They would save money over time, and we'd be a more sustainable family. And perhaps for our elderly residents and our lower income residents, we might match a higher amount, so that in that case, you know, we would make it more cost effective for some of our citizens who can remain in our town, who have a struggle being able to afford living in our town. But if we could make their homes more energy efficient, more cost effective, lower their energy bills, that would be a way for many of our lower income residents and our elderly residents to continue to stay in our town. So that would be another thing we would love the town to consider.
No, thank you, Becky, and I know you included that in your list to us, and so that is something we will take under consideration. I know the amount that you've included in here is pretty high, but who knows? Maybe we could figure something out. Thank you, Becky. All right, thank you, everyone. And again, please, elected officials, reach out to us with your thoughts, your ideas, your questions over the next month. And we will hope to schedule a meeting in September of all the town bodies with a final list, so we can get moving on using this very generous gift of $24.8 million. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.